Hi, welcome back to my class in Mathematics of Investment or Business Mathematics or Theory of Interest. For today, we will take up compound interest. And the compound interest is the amount of interest based on compound interest rate. The accumulated value at the given compound interest rate is given by the following formula. This is the formula we use to compute the accumulated value of the principal or accumulated amount of the principal at the end of investment period at compound interest rate denoted by I. This is actually I is the compound interest rate per period. And the compound interest rate per year or the annual compound interest rate is denoted by J. J is the compound interest rate. J is the compound interest rate per year, while in this formula, small I is the interest rate per period. Interest rate per period. In simple interest rate or in simple interest, small I denotes the simple interest rate. In compound interest, small I is denotes the interest rate, per period. Interest rate per period. And the small I or the interest rate per period is obtained from the compound interest rate per year. And it is given by this formula. I is equal to J divided by M, where M is the number of interest computations per year. The given is the compound interest rate per year, and to use this formula, we need to compute I. I denotes the interest rate per period, and the interest rate per period is computed by this formula, J divided by M, where M is the number of interest computations per year. And that would be indicated by the given compound interest rate. The number of computations per year will be indicated by the given compound interest rate per year. In the formula, P is the principal. As we have taken before, principal is the original amount invested or the original amount of loan. In this formula, the exponent N is the total number of interest computations in P years. N is equal to total number of interest computations for T years. Again, the small n is the total number of interest computations for T years. T is the period or length of investment, and T is in years. And the number of computations, the number of times that interest will be computed for T years, given the compound interest rate per year is denoted by N, and N is computed by the following formula. And now is equal to number of interest computations per year times the number of years, or the period of investment T in years. In using the compound interest rate, this is the formula to remember. Accumulated value or amount, accumulated amount is equal to principal times quantity 1 plus I to the power n, where P is the original amount invested known as principal, I is the interest rate per period, given by the formula I equals J divided by M, where J is the given compound interest rate per year, N is the number of interest computations per year, which will be indicated by the given compound interest rate. And the exponent N is the total number of interest computations for T years. And N is given by the formula N equals M multiplied by T, where M is the number of interest computations per year, and T is the period of investment in years. Now, we differentiate between compound interest and simple interest. What is the basic difference between simple interest and compound interest? There are actually two basic differences between simple interest and compound interest. At simple interest rate, the amount of interest is computed only one time, regardless of the period of investment or the time of investment, T in years. Whether you invest for 1 year or for 10 years, at simple interest rate, the amount of interest will be computed only once, or one time for the whole period of investment of 1 year or 10 years. While in compound interest rate, the amount of interest is computed more than once, depending on the number of times that interest will be computed in 1 year, which will be indicated, as I said earlier, by the given compound interest rate. At compound interest rate, the interest may be computed annually, that is every year, or the interest rate may be computed quarterly, that is 4 times in a year, every 3 months, or the amount of interest may be computed semi-annually, that is twice a year, every 6 months, or the interest rate may be computed monthly, that is 12 times in a year, every month. The other basic difference is that at simple interest rate, you can compute directly the amount of interest and then compute the accumulated value of the principal. The amount of interest at simple interest rate is computed by the formula I equals PIT. And after you have computed the amount of interest, capital I, at the given simple interest rate I, you may now compute the accumulated value or total amount equal to the sum of the principal and the amount of simple interest. While at compound interest rate, it is not possible to compute first the amount of interest. There is no formula that will allow us to compute directly the amount of compound interest. So what we do is we compute first the accumulated value or accumulated amount of the principal at the given compound interest rate using the formula A equals P principal times quantity 1 plus I to the power n, where I, as I said earlier, is the interest rate per period, equal to computed by the formula J divided by M, where J is the given compound interest rate per year, and M is the number of interest computations per year. and n is the total number of computations for t years, which is computed by the formula n equals mt, where m is the number of interest computations per year and t is the period of investment. And after we have computed the accumulated value of the principal at the given compound interest rate, we can now compute the amount of compound interest. It's given by accumulated value minus the principal. And this formula is actually obtained from this basic formula that defines accumulated value. Accumulated value is the sum of the original amount invested plus the amount of interest on the investment. That's why A equals P plus I. And if you transpose P to the left-hand side, P becomes minus. And you get I equals A, transpose P to the left, minus P. Let me explain further how the compound interest how the compound interest, the amount of compound interest is computed at the given compound interest rate. We suppose that the interest is computed annually, that is every year, every 12 months. Initially, the amount invested is denoted by the capital letter P, known as principal. And the time at which the principal P was invested is indicated by the point T equals 0. This is our timeline in years. So initially at the point T equals 0, we made an investment equal to P, principal. And after 1 year, if the given compound interest rate is compounded annually, that is, the interest is computed yearly, at the end of 1 year, the original amount invested P will earn an interest at the end of 1 year. And so at the end of 1 year, the accumulated value of the principal is equal to the principal plus the interest. And for the computation of the compound interest for the second year, the principal is the accumulated value of the original P at the end of 1 year. The accumulated value of the original principal invested at T equals 0. The accumulated value of this P given by P plus I will be taken as the principal at the beginning of the second year. And this again the original principal plus the interest will earn another interest at the end of the second year, computed at the compound interest rate per period I, small letter I. So at the end of the second year, we now have the principal at the beginning of the second year, P plus I, amount of interest, plus the interest earned for this second year. And for the next year, the amount of interest to be computed will be based on this amount, P plus I plus I. And that's the idea of compound interest. While in simple interest, at simple interest rate, the amount of interest is computed only one time for the whole period of investment. At compound interest rate, the interest is computed more than once. As in this example, the interest is computed yearly. If the given compound interest rate indicates that interest is compounded yearly. At compound interest rate, the only formula that you have to remember is this formula. Capital A equals P times quantity 1 plus I to the power n. In a problem involving compound interest rate, the given is the J, the compound interest rate per year. And given the J, you can compute the interest rate per period, per conversion period. M will be indicated by the given compound interest rate. And N is the total number of interest computations for T years given by this formula. N equals M times T, where T is time in years, or it is the period of investment in years. As I mentioned earlier, at compound interest rate, the amount of interest may be computed once a year, that is annually, or semi-annually, that is twice a year, or the interest at compound interest rate may be computed quarterly, that is 4 times a year, or monthly, and that is 12 times a year. If the compound interest rate given indicates that the interest is compounded annually, then M is equal to 1. If the compound interest rate is compounded semi-annually, then the value of M is equal to 2. That means the interest is computed twice a year, 2 times in 1 year. If the compound interest rate indicates that it is compounded annually, M is equal to 1. If the compound interest rate indicates that it is compounded quarterly, M is equal to 4. That is, the amount of interest will be computed 4 times in 1 year. And if the problem specifies that the compound interest rate is compounded monthly, that means the amount of interest will be computed 12 times a year. And you take M equals 12. Now, conversion period. If the compound interest rate is compounded annually, that means the conversion period is every year. That is, the interest will be computed after 1 year. If the compound interest rate is compounded semi-annually, the conversion period is every 6 months. That means the interest will be computed every 6 months in 1 year. And that would be 2 times in 1 year. If the compound interest rate is compounded quarterly, that means the conversion period is 3 months. That means the amount of interest will be computed every 3 months, and that would be 4 times in 1 year. M is equal to 4. If the compound interest rate is compounded monthly, conversion period is 1 month, which means that interest will be computed every month, or equivalently 12 times in 1 year. Now we are ready to take an example, and for our first example, we consider the following problem. Example, find the accumulated value and interest on 50,000 pesos at 7 1/3% compounded, A. annually, B. semi-annually, C. quarterly, and D. monthly. As in other problem solving, we write first the given information from the given problem. We are asked to find the accumulated value and interest on 50,000 pesos. Thus, we take 50,000 pesos as the principal P. Right, P equals 50,000 pesos. Thus, if we want to find the accumulated value of 50,000 pesos, we take 50,000 pesos as the original amount invested or original amount borrowed, and We denote it by capital P. The next given is the rate 7 1/3%. Since 7 1/3% is compounded annually, semi-annually, quarterly, and monthly, we take 7 1/3% as compound interest rate. And the compound interest rate is denoted by small j. Small j is 7 1/3%. And when substituting the interest rate in any formula, it should be converted to decimal number. And initially, we take all the decimal numbers because we only round off when we get the final answer. We only round off to 2 decimal places in the final answer. And to convert this to decimal number, you use your calculator. You divide 1 by 3 and you add 7. And you should get 7.333%. The digit 3 is repeated without n. Again, to convert 7 1/3% to decimal number, you divide 1 by 3 in your calculator and you add 7 and you should get 7.333 and it's still in percent. To convert this in percent, divide 7.3333 without n by 100% and you should get 0. Dividing 7.333, you press many 3 in your calculator, by 100, you should get 0.0733333. And we take all the decimal numbers because we will round off only in the final answer. Now, the required are accumulated value and interest. Accumulated value is denoted by A. And interest or amount of interest is denoted by capital I. In letter A, the given interest rate of 7 1/3% is compounded annually. That means the interest will be computed every year. And if the interest will be computed every year, M is equal to 1. Now, you notice in this problem that the time period of investment P is not given. Find the accumulated value and interest on 50,000 pesos. Let's say at 7 1/3% compounded annually. We add at the end of of 6 years. I have added the time 6 years. Now our problem reads, find the accumulated value and interest on 50,000 pesos at the end of 6 years at 7 1/3% compounded annually, semi-annually, quarterly, and monthly. The information given should be the principal, the compound interest rate, and the time T in years. And the time T in years is 6 years. And the required are the accumulated value of 50,000 denoted by A, and the interest or amount of interest denoted by I. In letter A, the compound interest rate 7 1/3% is compounded annually. That means the interest is computed once a year for 6 years. If the interest is computed every year, then we take m equals 1. And we start with A. We cannot compute the amount of interest directly at compound interest rate. Unlike at simple interest rate, we can compute first for the amount of interest, capital I. But at compound interest rate, we have to start with accumulated value or compound amount A, given by the formula A equals P times 1 plus I to the power n, where I is the interest rate per period. Our conversion period here is, for m equals 1, our conversion period here is 1 year. And I is given by J divided by M, where our J in decimal number is 0.0733. 3 is repeated without N. Divide by M. M is 1. So our I is 0.733333. Divide by 1 equals 0.073333. Next, we need the N. N is the total number of interest computations for T years. In this example, N is the total number of interest, the number of times that interest will be computed for 6 years. And N is given by M times T. M times T, where M is the number of interest computations per year, and M is 1. That means interest is computed only once a year. Once a year, but for 6 years, T is equal to 6. Hence, for a period of 6 years, the interest will be computed 6 times a year. Now we substitute P, 50,000 pesos. Interest rate per period I, 0.07333. 3 is repeated without N. To the power N, N is equal to 6. A now is equal to 50,000 pesos. Multiplied by 1 plus I, the interest rate per period, 0.0733333. To the power N, N is 6. And you have to use your scientific calculator to find the value of this. Please get your scientific calculator. And you start with 1 plus 0.07. 1 plus 0.07333. You press as many 3 as you can in your calculator. To the power, you press the power in your calculator, the exponent. To the power 6. And multiply by 50,000 pesos. And you should get 76,450. 76,450.038 1011952. Now we round off our answer to 2 decimal places, and the digit to be rounded up is the 3rd digit from the decimal point. You may actually round off your answer from your calculator. You do not have to write all these decimal numbers. And just round off your answer to 2 decimal places. But I wrote all the decimal numbers so I can tell you how to round off this decimal number to 2 decimal places. Again, if you want the answer to 2 decimal places, the third digit from the decimal point is to be rounded off. From the decimal point, you count 1, 2, 3, and 8 is the number to be rounded off. If the number to be rounded off is 5 or more than 5, we add 1 to the preceding digit. That is the digit that comes before the number to be rounded off. Since 8 is more than 5, we add 1 to the preceding digit 3, and 3 plus 1 is 4. Thus, the final answer for accumulated value is 76,450.04. After we have computed the accumulated value, we now compute the amount of interest. The amount of interest is computed by the formula A minus T, where capital I is the amount of interest. The amount of interest is obtained by subtracting the principal from its accumulated value A. In letter A, the accumulated value of 50,000 pesos at 7 1/3% compounded annually is 76,450.04. And from this accumulated value, we subtract the principal of 50,000 pesos. And you get the difference of 26,450.04 pesos. This is the interest earned by the principal of 50,000 pesos at the end of 6 years at 7 1/3% compounded annually as indicated in letter A. And this amount of interest is, we call compound interest. Now in letter B, the compound interest rate is compounded semi-annually. If the interest rate is compounded semi-annually, it means that the interest will be computed twice a year in 1 year. And if the interest is computed twice a year, we take M equals 2. M equals 2 in letter B. If M equals 2, our interest will be computed semi-annually, that is every 6 months, twice a year, for 6 years. Now, the interest rate per period, or every 6 months, the interest rate per 6 months will change. I is given by J divided by M. Our compound interest rate per year is 7 1/3%. In decimal number, 0.07. 0.0733333. 3 is repeated without M. Divide by M, because in letter B, the compound interest rate is compounded semi-annually. M is 2. So we divide J by M. J is 0.073333. We divide this by 2. Again, you take all the decimal numbers because we will only round off in the final answer. We have 0.07333. You press as many 3 as you can in your calculator. And divide by 2. You should get 0.036666. 6 is repeated without M. 0.0366666. The last digit is 5. Because the interest will be computed 2 times in 1 year or twice a year. For 6 years, we find the total number of interest, the total number of times that interest will be computed for 6 years, and that is given by n. N equals MP. N is the total number of times that interest will be computed for 6 years. And it is equal to the number of times that interest will be computed per year, twice a year, multiplied by the number of years, 6 years. And 2 multiplied by 6 is 12. 12 means that interest will be computed 12 times for 6 years. And that is twice a year. Now we are ready to compute for the accumulated value of 50,000 pesos at 7 1/3% compounded semi-annually. And accumulated value at compound interest rate is given by P times quantity 1 plus I to the power n, where P is 50,000 pesos. 1 plus the interest rate per period, or the interest rate every 6 months, is 0.03. I equals 0.036666. 0.03666 to the power n. And the total number of times that interest will be computed for 6 years is 12. N is 12. Now, use again your calculator to compute this amount. And you always start with the quantity in open close parentheses. 1 plus 0.03 1 plus 0.03 6666. Press as many 6 as you can in your calculator. And the last digit is 5. And then raise the sum to the power 12. And multiply the answer by 50,000 pesos. And you should get 77.026. We write that 77,026.402. The answer is non-terminating decimal number. Now we round off our answer to 2 decimal places. After the decimal point, we count 3. 1, 2, 3. The number to be rounded off is 2, but 2 is less than 5. So we simply drop 2 and all the digits to its right, and we do not add 1 to the preceding digit 0. And the final answer to 2 decimal places is 77,026.40 pesos. 77,026 and 40. 40 centavos. This is the accumulated amount or compound amount of 50,000 pesos at 7 1/3% compounded semi-annually. Now we compute the amount of interest by getting the difference of A and P. Amount of interest I is equal to accumulated value of 50,000 pesos, 77 0.2640 minus the principal of 50,000 and I is equal to 77,000. 26.40 minus 50,000 is 27,000. 26.40. Now you can see that at 7 and 1/3% compounded semi-annually, the amount of interest, the amount of compound interest of 27,026.40 is higher than the amount of compound interest computed at 7 and 1/3%, the same interest rate, but compounded annually, or 26,450.04. Now we compute the accumulated value and the compound interest at 7 and 1/3%, but in letter C, 7 and 1/3% is now compounded quarterly. In letter C, the interest rate of 7 and 1/3% is compounded quarterly. This means that amount of interest will be computed 4 times a year, and we take 4 as our M. M is the number of interest computations in 1 year. Compounded quarterly, it means that interest will be computed 4 times a year. That is every 3 months. M is equal to 4. And we compute the accumulated value using the formula A equals P times 1 plus I to the power N. But the value of M changes, hence the value of small I, the interest rate per period, per 3 months will change. And I is given by J divided by M. The interest rate is the same, 7 and 1/3%. In decimal, it's 0.07. 0.07. 3 is repeated without N. Divide by the number of interest computations in 1 year, 4. And we use our calculator to divide 0.07333 by 4. We have 0.07, press 3 as many 3 in your calculator, divide that by 4. And you should get 0.018, 0.0183. 83. We have how many 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 3's in my calculator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2, 5. After 9 threes, the last digits are 2 and 5. So 0.07333, you press as many 3 in your calculator. Divide by 4 is 0.0181333. There are 9 threes. The last 2 digits are 2, 5. Also, the exponent n will change. The number of times that interest will be computed for 6 years will change. And n is given by MP, where m is the number of times that interest will be computed in 1 year, 4 times a year. And P is our period of investment. In our example, it is 6 years. And 4 by 6 is 24. Now we are ready to compute the accumulated value of the principal of 50,000 pesos. A is equal to P, 50,000 pesos. Multiply by quantity 1 plus I, the interest rate per period, if the rate is compounded semi-annually, is 0.018. 0.018. You press 9 threes, and the last two digits are 25. Raised to the power n is 24. And we have A equals, when you get this answer in your calculator, do not erase it or remove it. You just add 1 and raise the sum to the power 24. Or you press this again, 1 plus 0.018333, 25 to the power 24. The interest will be computed 24 times a year for 6 years, every 3 months, because the interest rate is compounded quarterly in letter C. Raise this sum, 1 plus 0.01833, 25 to the power 24, and multiply by 50,000 pesos. And you should get 77,326. 326 point. I will give the answer in the calculator to 3 decimal places, and we will round it off to 2 decimal places. So I have only written the answer from the calculator to 3 decimal places, because the third digit from the decimal point is to be rounded off. If we want the final answer to 2 decimal places, round off the third digit from the decimal point. And that third digit from the decimal point is 2. And since 2 is less than 5, we drop 2 and all the digits to its right. And the final answer is 77,326.62. 77,326.62. That's the accumulated value of 50,000 pesos at 7 1/3% compounded quarterly. And from this accumulated value, we subtract the principal of 50,000 pesos to get the amount of compound interest denoted by capital I. Capital I equals accumulated value A minus the principal P. And A is 77,326.62 minus P, the principal is 50,000 pesos. And we should get 27,326.62. 27,326.62. Now we do letter D. In letter D, the interest rate of 7 and 1/3% is compounded monthly. If the interest rate is compounded monthly, that means the amount of interest will be computed every month for 1 year, in 1 year. And that's equivalent to 12 times a year. So for letter D, we take M now equals 12. Letter D, we take M equals 12. And we compute the accumulated value by this formula. A equals P times quantity 1 plus I to the power M. Because the interest now will be computed 12 times a year, our I given by J over M will change. But J is still the same, 7 and 1/3%, or 0.073333, and we divide that by our new value of M, 12. We compute I is equal to J, 0.07333, and we divide J by 12. You get again your calculator to compute the new value of I, the interest rate per month. We have 0.07. Press as many as 3 in your calculator and divide that by 12. And you should get 0.006. Sorry, this is decimal number. 0.0611111. The digit 1 is repeated without n. The exponent n in this formula will also change. N is given by M times T. The total number of interest computations for 3 years is equal to the number of interest computations for 1 year. In letter D, it's 12 times a year. Multiplied by T years. In our example, T is 6 years. So we multiply 12, M is 12 by T, 6. We have N is equal to MT. M is 12 multiplied by T, 6 years, and 72. We get 72. 72 means that interest will be computed 72 times in 6 years. And that is 12 times in 1 year. And that is every 3 months. Every month. Letter D, interest rate is compounded monthly. The interest will be computed every month. Or that is a total of 72 times in 6 years, or 12 times a year. That is monthly. Now we are ready to compute the accumulated value of 50,000 pesos. Accumulated value A now is equal to P, 50,000 pesos, multiplied by quantity 1 plus I. The interest rate per month is 0.006. 1 is repeated without n. To the power n, our n is 72. The interest will be computed 72 times in 6 years. And we compute this using our calculator. We now compute the accumulated value A of 50,000 pesos. at the interest rate of 7 and 1/3%, but now compounded monthly. And we compute 50,000 times quantity 1 plus 0.006111. This is the interest rate per month to the power n, which is 72, as we had computed earlier. So we press in our calculator. We start with the quantity inside the open close parenthesis, 1 plus 0.006. 1 plus 0.006. And you press as many one in your calculator. And the sum is raised to the power 72. And multiply the result by 50,000 pesos. And you should get 77,531. 77,531 point. I will give the answer to 3 decimal places. And we will round this up to 2 decimal places. If you want the answer to be rounded up to 2 decimal places, the third digit from the decimal point is to be rounded off. And from the decimal point, the third digit is 7. Since 7 is more than 5, we add 1 to the preceding digit 7. And the final answer to 2 decimal places should be 77,531.48. The accumulated value of the principal of 50,000 pesos at 7 and 1/3% compounded monthly as indicated in letter D is 77,531.48, from which we subtract the principal of 50,000 pesos to get the amount of interest, capital I. Capital I is equal to accumulated value minus the principal. Accumulated value is 77,531.48 minus the principal of 50,000 pesos. And the amount of interest is 27,531.48. The amount of interest, the compound interest earned by 50,000 pesos at 7 and 1/3% compounded monthly is 27,531.48, which is slightly higher than this amount of compound interest earned by the same principal of 50,000 pesos at 7 and 1/3% compounded quarterly. This is the compound interest, is the amount of compound interest computed at this rate but compounded quarterly. And this is the amount of compound interest at the same rate compounded monthly. So you can see that as the conversion period gets shorter, the number of interest computations per year increases, as well as the total number of interest computations for 3 years increases. And so the amount of interest capital I also increases. Now for your practice, please try the following problem. Exercise: find the accumulated value and interest on 47,600 pesos for 5 years. 3.5% compounded. Letter A, annually. Letter B, semi-annually. Letter C, quarterly. And letter D, monthly. The first thing that you will do is you write the given, identify the given information, including 47,600 pesos, 5 years, 3.5%. And for letter A, you identify the value of M for annually, semi-annually, the value of M for quarterly, and the value of M for monthly. And for you to check your solution independently, I have given you the answers for the amount of interest, the amount of compound interest. For letter A, the amount of compound interest is 8,933.87. For letter B, the amount of interest is 9,017.56 pesos. For letter C, the amount of compound interest is 9,060.17 pesos. And for letter D, the amount of compound interest is 9,088.88 pesos. You see that the amount of compound interest increases as the period, as the conversion period gets shorter and the number of times that interest computations increases. But before you can find the amount of interest, capital I, you have to compute first the accumulated value for A, B, C, and D. If you have question about the lesson today, you ask your question in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe or ask your friends to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Art Kalisan. Thank you for joining me in my class today.